It all began on a dark, stormy night. Rain poured heavily, drumming on rooftops and splashing in puddles on the ground. Mariam, a gentle and kind-hearted girl of 24 years, walked quickly through the rain, her face wet with more than just water. She had just left her fiancé, Tunde, after a heated argument. "How can you be so selfish, Mariam?" Tunde had yelled earlier, pacing around his small apartment. "Do you think marriage is a joke?" "Tunde, I'm just saying we need more time," Mariam replied. "Time? We've been together for 3 years, Mariam. If you're not ready now, when will you ever be?" His voice was sharp and filled with anger. Mariam tried to reason with him, but Tunde was too upset to listen. He told her to leave. "Get out, Mariam. Your head will correct itself while you walk home in the rain," he shouted, opening the door wide. "But it's dark and raining heavily. Please, Tunde, let's talk about this in the morning," she begged, her voice trembling. "I said leave." He pushed her out the door, slamming it behind her. Shivering in the rain, Mariam began walking home, her heart heavy and tears mixing with the rain on her face. The streets were quiet, except for the sound of water dripping and the occasional rumble of thunder. As she approached her neighborhood, she suddenly heard muffled sounds, grunts and low voices. Mariam froze, her heart pounding. Peeking through a gap in the fence, she saw 2 masked men attacking someone. The man groaned in pain as they injected something into his arm. Mariam gasped, and her foot hit a loose sheet of zinc nearby. It clattered loudly to the ground. The masked men whipped their heads around, panic flashing in their eyes. "Let's go. Someone's coming," one of them whispered harshly, and they ran off into the night. Mariam hesitated, fear gripping her, but then she ran to where the man lay. He was motionless, his face bruised and bleeding, rain pouring down on him. Despite the injuries, he was strikingly handsome, with a clean haircut and smooth, chiseled features. "Help!" Mariam called out desperately, but no one answered. The neighborhood was silent. She quickly dialed her sister, Zainab. "Zainab, please call Malam Musa, the tricycle driver. Tell him to meet me outside our street. It's an emergency." "Are you okay? What's wrong?" Zainab asked, alarmed. "Just hurry. It's life or death." Within minutes, Zainab arrived with Malam Musa. Together, they carefully lifted the injured man into the tricycle and rushed to the nearest hospital. At the hospital, the doctors worked quickly to stabilize the man. After what felt like hours, one of the doctors approached Marie and Zainab. "He's stable now, but we still don't know what's wrong with him. We'll need to wait for the test results." Mariam sighed in relief. "Thank you, doctor." Zainab turned to her sister. "Mariam, we should go home now. Mama and Baba will panic if they wake up and we're not there." Mariam shook her head. "No, you go. Tell them everything in the morning. I'll stay here with him." Zainab hesitated, but finally agreed. "Okay, but call me if anything happens." The next morning, as their parents woke up, they immediately noticed their daughters were missing. "Where is Mariam? Didn't she come back from Tunde's house last night?" Mama asked, worry evident in her voice. "And where is Zainab?" Baba added, dialing their numbers. Both phones were unreachable. Panic began to set in. Then Baba's phone rang. "Baba, it's me, Mariam. We're at the hospital. I'll explain everything when Zainab gets home." A few minutes later, Zainab arrived home and told their parents everything. Mama gasped, her hands covering her mouth. Baba sat in stunned silence, unable to process the shocking story. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the second prince, Prince Ao, sat comfortably in his lavish mansion. He held his phone to his ear, speaking calmly to the killers he had hired. "Is the job done?" he asked. "Yes, Your Highness," one of the men replied. "We made it slow and painful, just as you instructed. He's gone. And the accident scene? We've taken a body from the mortuary and arranged a fire. His face won't be recognizable." "Good," Aya said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "I'm the one who deserves to be king, not my perfect brother who's lived abroad all these years. Prince Ademola has been living and schooling abroad. After graduation, he got himself a good job abroad. Despite their wealth, he worked hard and tirelessly and became even richer than his parents. He's kind, handsome, and very brilliant, despite his position as the next king to be in their kingdom. He was to be crowned prince 3 days after his arrival, while his brother Prince Io, a spoiled brat, who had a very bad character, smoking and always partying, he graduated from one of the best universities in Lagos. He hardly respects outsiders, barely respected people. He even threw tantrum even when he was a child, and making work so hard for the nannies. Unknowns to him, his brother Prince Ademola was alive but in critical condition, lying in the hospital where Mariam stayed by his side. The king and queen were distraught. They had been eagerly awaiting Ademola's arrival, as he was to be crowned the next king in 3 days. "Where is my son?" the queen cried. Io pretended to search for his brother. Back at the hospital where Mariam stayed, the doctor approached her with an update. "The young man is awake, but there's something you should know. He's experiencing memory loss and behaving strangely. He may need specialized care in a psychiatric facility." Mariam's heart sank. She walked into the room and saw the man sitting up, his eyes wide and confused. He looked at her and smiled faintly. The day had started with the palace abuzz with preparations for the coronation of Crown Prince Ademola. The Onowu then ran to the door with the Crown Prince Ademola, their robes glinting in the sunlight. They were eager to begin the ceremony. "Your Majesty," the Onowu said, bowing before the king and queen, "we are here to see the crown prince. I trust he is well and ready for his coronation." The king and queen exchanged worried glances. The queen, pale and trembling, said, We don't know where he is. Ademola hasn't returned, and we've had no word from him." Prince Io stepped forward, feigning sorrow. "Elders, Mama, Baba, I'm so sorry. I have devastating news," he said, his voice trembling. "My brother, Prince Ademola, is dead." Gasps filled the room. "Dead!" the Onawi exclaimed. "How could this happen?" "It was a tragic accident," Ayo lied smoothly. "His car caught fire after a crash. His body was unrecognizable." The queen let out a wail and collapsed. The king clutched his chest, his face pale, and fell to the ground. Chaos erupted as palace attendants rushed to help. Both the king and queen were taken to the hospital. "Miss Mariam," the doctor said kindly, "his condition requires long-term treatment at a specialized facility, but the cost is very high." Mariam bit her lip. "Isn't there a more affordable option?" The doctor sighed. "There is a local psychiatric home, but to be honest, the quality of care there isn't great. I'm not sure if he'll recover fully in that environment." "I'll take him there," Mariam said firmly. "It's all I can afford." The next day, Mariam transferred the man to the local psychiatric home. She visited him daily, bringing him homemade meals and speaking to him softly, even though he rarely responded. Her fiancé Tunde noticed her growing absence and called her one evening. "Mariam, we need to talk," he said. "Please come over. I'm sorry for everything." Reluctantly, Mariam agreed. When she arrived, Tunde greeted her with a sorrowful expression. "Mariam, I am sorry for pushing you out in the rain. I was angry, but I shouldn't have treated you that way. Please forgive me." "It's okay," Mariam said, her voice flat. "I've forgiven you, but I've been very busy lately." "Busy with what?" he asked. "Work and taking care of a man at the psychiatric home." Tunde's widened. "What man?" Mariam hesitated before explaining. "That night you pushed me out. I found a man almost dead near my house. He lost his memory and doesn't even know his name. I've been helping him recover." Tunde's face twisted with anger. "So you've been ignoring me for some madman?" He slapped her hard across the face. "After everything I've done for you and your family, you dare to prioritize a lunatic over me." Tears streamed down Mariam's face as she left his house. Later that day, she visited the psychiatric home. The man stood by the gate, waiting for her. When he saw her swollen cheek, he gently touched her face with his hand, his expression filled with sorrow. Tears welled in his eyes, as if he could feel her pain. Mariam's feelings for him deepened. She decided to break off her engagement with Tunde. Mariam called Tunde the next day. "Tunde, I'm sorry to tell you this over the phone, but I can't continue this relationship. I don't feel safe or happy with you." "Is this about that madman?" Tunde shouted. "Are you seriously leaving me for a lunatic?" "People will laugh at me, Mariam." "My mind is made up," she said firmly. Tunde went to her parents, pleading for their help. "Your daughter is throwing away everything I've done for her and this family," he said angrily. When Mariam returned home, her parents confronted her. "Mariam, how can you leave Tunde? He's been so good to us. He paid for your sister's hospital bill." "Papa, Mama, I'm not happy with him. He's abusive," she said, her voice breaking. "If you choose to leave him, you can no longer stay in this house," her father said sternly. "I will not watch my daughter engage with a madman. Never." Mariam packed her things and left, her heart breaking. Mariam rented a small apartment far from her family. She brought the man to live with her. Though he was still unwell, she cared for him with all her heart. One evening, as the rain drizzled outside, she looked at him and realized something. She was falling in love with him. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly free. Meanwhile, back in the palace hospital, the king has been able to regain consciousness, but still could not say a word. As the queen, who has already regained consciousness, watches over him in the hospital, back in the palace, the Anawu sat with the council of elders in the palace hall. As they deliberated, Prince Ao stormed into the room. "Anawu, how long do you intend to wait? The kingdom needs a ruler. My father is incapacitated and my brother is dead. What are you waiting for?" The Anawu stood. "We have told you, Prince Ao, that it is a taboo to crown you while your father lives. The decision of making you the crown prince, next king to be, is not ours but his, and if he dies without saying the word, then your chances of becoming the next king is gone. Instead of pressuring us, why not take care of your father first?" "Then wake him up!" Ao yelled, his eyes wild. "I will not let this throne slip from my hands. I can pay any amounts of money to get it done quickly." "Watch your tone, young prince," the Onawu said firmly. "You may be royalty, but you must respect the laws of this land." Prince Ao glared at the council. One evening, Tunde called Mariam. "Please come over. I need to see you one last time," he said. Hesitant but wanting closure, Mariam agreed. Tunde prepared a drink for her, adding drug substance that will make her want him. If she won't stay with me, I'll take her virginity that I always wanted, he smiled to himself. Mariam drank the drugged drink and felt strange soon after. She quickly made an excuse to leave. Tunde tried to stop her, but she refused, returning home to find the man sitting by the window, staring at the rain. She was feeling so wet and honey and was having the urge for sex. She moved closer to the prince and started touching him. He turned to her, smiling. He got a rose from her touch and kiss, and she made love to him. Even in his mad status, he was so gentle with her, touching her and mourning like he was a normal person enjoying a good sex. As she sat on him, moving her body so gently, as it was her first time, the sex lasted for almost an hour, and she was still honey until she started feeling a sweet sensation, like something was rushing out of her, and he was mourning louder this time. They both reached orgasm and slept off. The next morning, she woke up with blood on her sheet. "Oh no, I had an unprotected sex with him," she gasped in shock. "And my virginity is gone. Oh, mine. What have I done?" 2 months later, Mariam discovered she was pregnant. Mariam stared at the pregnancy test in her hand. 2 lines. She was pregnant. Looking at the man, who still didn't remember his name, she whispered, "What am I going to do now?"